everybody? This is That Horror Guy.
And I'm Mel.
And we are the Scream Team. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications for all things horror. And what we got going on here?
We got a couple people with us.
Got some people with us here.
Yeah. The screen is much better looking today than usual.
Yeah.
We have with us Carmelo and Jessie from our new favorite movie, pretty much ever, Sin Eater. If you haven't checked out either the trailer reaction or our full review of it, please do that now, because we cannot continue to sing the praises of this movie more.
Exactly.
So we have gathered these guys who have so graciously joined us this evening to answer some few questions. And we're going to ask a few questions that I may already know the answer to, because I got a little Q&A, got to see with these guys at the premiere. So I'm purposely going to ask you things I already know, because I know the answers are fantastic. So you want to kick it off, because you're chomping at the bit to ask these guys.
Yeah, no, I've got quite a few questions myself here, but so for Carmelo to start, how long did you sit with the concept of Sin Eater?
An hour and a half. I heard of Sin Eaters when I was in college, and then when I was trying to think of we were trying to write a movie, and my brother and I took like an hour and a half drive to Wisconsin. It was the fall. We were going to do some fall shit, like apple picking or whatever you do. And in the drive from there to Wisconsin, about an hour and a half, we basically plotted the whole thing. And then I went home and I wrote it in about 3 days. And then we edited it for weeks, right? But I actually pumped out the first draft in just a couple of days.
That is impressive.
That's very impressive. Yeah.
It takes me weeks just to write one riff that sounds good, let alone a whole screenplay.
It takes me weeks to complete a single thought. So that is pretty impressive.
It's like you get the muse, when the muse is upon you, you just kind of, it comes out more easily. I've tried to write stories that take forever because there's nothing there. Sin Eater, it just came to me,
If it works, it works.
That's awesome. So I'm not going to ask the initial question, because you answered this in your Q&A, but you said The Exorcist and The Shining were two of your biggest kind of influences. So I get The Exorcist totally. Yeah. Watching this movie, I get that vibe. Is there anywhere in this movie that you watch it back and be like, there's my Shining influence? Because I didn't.
Yeah, You know, it's okay. And you know what? It's funny because other people were like, oh, this is clearly like Texas Chainsaw Massacre influence. I was like, I didn't think about Texas Chainsaw Massacre at all when I wrote it. And yet I go watch the movie now and I'm like, oh no, yeah, it's very clearly Texas Chainsaw Massacre stuff in here. So, that's the thing about art that I like is, you bring your own thing to it and then you can take something really different. I guess The Shining, there was a couple things. There's real superficial stuff. Like, for instance, the population of the town is 237, which is the room in The Shining where all the hauntings happen, is 237. And then there's real performance stuff. I'm pretty sure Danny Bonens was doing his best Jack Torrance impression, the whole movie.
He was trying.
And then there's visual stuff. I like these long hallway shots where Jessie's running back and forth down the hall, and we got real low and got these real long shots. And to me, that was very Kubrick-esque, in the hallway of the hotel. So those were some of the things I was thinking about, Shining ones.
Sure.
That clears up that. Yep. I can definitely see it now. For Jessie, you spent a lot of the film with the inability to talk. How difficult was it to have to adapt to a more body language-driven acting?
It's twofold. Of course, the physical aspect of it was hard. Having the mouthpiece in my mouth was hard. I couldn't, show my full range of emotion because I was physically held back. Right. But at the same time, I think it helped in that it made so much more come through my eyes and the things that I could control. So it was like a double-edged sword. It was really terrible, because I'm crying and screaming and getting upset, and I can't. I can't even, when I'm gasping for breath from freaking out, it's because I literally can't breathe. It's when you're upset, you inhale through your mouth, right? It's completely blocked. So that was tough for sure. So it made real frustration which I think came through the film great. You know, it kind of fed the script a little bit. So I think it was good. It was bad, but it in the end it really fed my character, and I think it's what made the film pretty cool.
Was there ever a moment where you had to just break character because you were just so miserable, or did you power your way through it? Because it really makes me think of this time, because I'm an actor too, and
okay, yeah.
I actually had to do a stage performance with a broken leg, and I had to have my cast removed.
Oh my God.
And then just act like nothing was wrong. And when you're doing a stage performance, you obviously can't break because there's no stopping and restarting. Did you ever have that moment where you're like, I am just so miserable, I have to stop? Because it really brought back horrible memories for me, watching you, knowing that you were probably suffering during some of that.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of used to it by now with these guys. They like to put me through the ringer for sure. I honestly don't remember a time that I had to stop. I feel like I'm that kind of person though who just like pushes through. I like to get the hard stuff done and quick, and I that's my personality in general, is to push through. I don't remember ever having to stop. If usually if I stop in a take, it's because I'm laughing, because something made me laugh. That's usually like 99% of what will break me. But no, I never had to like rip it out and be like, this is awful. But I paid with a headache at the end of the day, so that's all right. It's okay, Carmelo. I love you still.
Well, my favorite thing I notice now and at the Q&A, anytime anyone mentions you being any discomfort with that, Carmelo gets this like shit-eating grin on his face, and it's like my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah, I think he likes it.
It's because like it's like when someone catches you like with your hand in the cookie jar and you're just like, yeah, I did that. Like I know it, and I'm sorry. We always Jessie and I call her my Bruce Campbell, and I'm her Sam Raimi. It's like, yeah, Bruce Campbell's always getting tortured by Sam Raimi, and like that's Jessie. What we did to her in the next movie was much worse.
And like I said earlier, I feel like the discomfort makes the performance more real. It kind of grounds you in what you're doing. So, I mean, appreciate it and don't appreciate it. It's like a toss-up.
I definitely think it came through big time in the film.
Definitely.
And so I've been a huge fan of the podcast, Carmelo, for years.
Thank you.
Once you joined on, I loved it even more. So obviously you've got a working experience with the Bonens. Jessie, this is your second time with them. How did you guys get to knowing them?
So we met in acting class in Denver. Probably, gosh, it's been a long time. Maybe like, I would say 2015. So what is that, like 7 years ago now? I just found this acting class, started going there, and Scotty and Danny were there. And we just hit it off. We were doing scenes together. We just became fast friends. And they've always, from the day I met them, they've always just wanted to make movies. And so I would say that the 5-6 years of class with them was like my audition process for them.
Nice.
It was like a 5-year audition for the boys, but no, we're really great friends, and we still like to create things together, and we have some stuff in the works, I think, and I think we're going to be friends for life.
Oh yeah. And so Carmelo, how did you come across getting into the podcast with them? I've always wondered about that.
Yeah, so I was a listener first, and then I had an idea for like a cult classic action show spinoff that I wanted to do, and I was on the show as a guest when I published a horror graphic novel called Cellar Door, and they knew about me from that. So when they had a vacancy on the podcast when Rob was out for a while, they asked me to fill in, and then I ran a Kickstarter campaign for them for She Walks the Woods, their first movie, because they knew my work from Cellar Door. And so after that, they're like, well, listen, you write graphic novels and we want to make a movie, but we wish we had a script when we shot She Walks the Woods. We did it like guerrilla style. Can you write us something? And that was like 3 or 4 years ago. Now, now they're like my brothers. Like I probably see them more than most of my friends, even though they live in Colorado. I think I go to Denver like twice a year, so it's, we're real tight now.
That's awesome.
Well, and that's something I loved watching this movie is because you can tell when actors have chemistry off screen. It comes through.
Yeah.
You know, so seeing you guys together, you know, even though in the film you, Jessie, and them are somewhat mortal enemies at the end of it, you know, it really comes through that you have that chemistry. Yeah. And I've seen movies where you can tell that chemistry is just not there. So the fact that you guys have known each other and have that bond already just makes this just that much greater. So that's really cool.
Absolutely. I agree. When you were writing this, Carmelo, did you have characters in mind for the individual roles while you were writing it, or did that come through with the casting side as you?
I did have specific roles in mind as I went along. I sort of started with Jessie. I met Jessie at the premiere of She Walks the Woods, and I had no idea what to expect because I had only known her from that movie where she's this like 7 foot tall creature, right? She's like totally unrecognizable. And then I met her at the premiere of She Walks the Woods, and she's just like the most charming person you've ever met in your life. And I immediately like latched onto this idea of like, she's got the star quality that I was looking for. So when I said like I had a muse, it was specifically Jessie. And I saw her in this role of Christine from the start. Because like I knew she could act the vulnerability it needed, but I also knew she could pull off the ending, which I think is totally badass. So I very much had Jessie in mind the whole time. And with Danny and Scotty, I sort of knew what I wanted to do with them going into it. You know, with the main villain really is this minister character. That was a little more open. We did do a casting call for that. It ended up being Danny and Scotty's stepfather, but they were reluctant because they didn't want to cast him just because he was their stepfather. But I was like, no, send me the tape. I'll decide. And totally independently of them, he was ended up being what we were looking for. And then for the big question is the priest, Father Dunn, who tortures Jessie the entire movie, ended up being Bill Moseley. And that was a part that we knew we wanted to get some kind of horror icon in here to really elevate the project, to elevate the project's credibility and marketability. And we went through a couple people. We went through Tony Todd's agent was really excited about it, but he was actually busy while we were casting. And we were like, we have to move on, man. Like, I don't have to tell you, we're shooting when we're shooting. We almost cast Ken Forey. We still talk to him. He still sends us scripts and stuff. Yeah. And Lance Hendrickson's agent, actually, I talked to her at length. She loved it, but she said, well, he's played too many priests. If you write another script with him, for him, like, please call me because like, I want to do one of your scripts. He just can't play a priest. And, you know, it goes a long way because, you know, when in Hollywood, if they don't like you, you just won't return your messages, right? Like they don't have to tell you shit. But she and I talked for like an hour. We also talked to Michael Biehn for like 2 hours, Danny and I. Michael Biehn was almost the minister. But when we found out Bill Moseley was available, we jumped at it, and I could not have been happier. It was just fantastic.
Well, the last person you would think of being a priest is Bill Moseley. So I can't think of a more perfect. Like at first when he comes on screen, I'm like, Bill Moseley's not a bad guy. And it's like, oh, wait, never mind.
Oh, no, he's definitely a bad guy already.
I was like, the priest. And then I was like, oh, shit. Okay. I see where this is going.
Well, and he played him like a true believer. And that's something we talked about while we were shooting is like, this guy's a true believer in his cause. And he really thinks he's trying to save this woman's soul. Right. And that's a very different performance than a guy who just likes to torture people. And it's a more interesting performance.
Absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely.
I was having lunch with him a couple months ago when he was in town for a horror con. And I was telling him how I want to cast people against their type because I think you get really interesting performances out of that. So, you know, and he's kind of like famous for playing like, you know, the angry redneck in like Devil's Rejects. So like, I want to cast him in like refined, you know, intelligent roles because I think like, I'd like to see that out of him, you know?
Oh, yeah, that would be absolutely agreed. You mentioned the ending, and that mouth scene will probably scar the both of us for quite some time.
When I saw that at the premiere, I was eating, and I was like, oh, God, I'm not hungry anymore. I had, like, salad just hanging out of my mouth. It was not pretty.
Like, no! So, with Jessie, are you actually a horror fan by trade, or did you just kind of just get whisked into this world with just the friends?
I for sure got whisked into this world. And I wouldn't say I'm totally anti-horror film. I would just say I'm not like a huge, crazy, like cult follower. Like, I mean, some of the movies that I grew up watching were like, I don't know, like Alien. Like, I love those kind of movies. And I think you guys think they're kind of like horror sci-fi. I tend to run on the more like sci-fi edge. I love like aliens and space and stuff like that. So not far from it, but not a huge horror fan. But I would say that it's really fun to be in horror movies.
Oh yeah. So knowing that you're not necessarily a horror fan, what characters in film would you say you used to inspire Christine and portray her on screen?
God, what films? I don't think there was any like particular character movie that inspired her. I think what made my superpower as an actor is I have like incredible empathy. So I can like read something and immediately feel what the character is feeling. I've always been really good at that. So I think just reading the script. Yeah, I think I fully like fleshed out Christine in my own brain. I mean, maybe subconsciously I pulled from here and there, but I can't specifically point out as a certain film that I used. I think really she was kind of me in a lot of ways. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a better answer, I think, than we were hoping.
Yeah, that's way cooler than I expected.
Yeah.
I have one more question for you, Carmelo. So the whole kind of religious trauma thing really connected with me because I'm a queer person that grew up in an extremely Southern Baptist household. So that really, I felt that to my core. What inspired you to go with kind of like a more religious trauma type deal with Jessie's character?
Yeah, so, when I started with the Sin Eater ritual, and, I originally started with the mouth, and then I worked backward to the Sin Eater because I thought something that was like oral and about eating. And I had already been fascinated with the Sin Eater myth for a long, long time. So then, like, to me, the religious aspect flowed very naturally from this idea of like rituals and like how bad they can really be for people. I actually think I probably have a more sympathetic view of religion than the movie lets on in a lot of ways. And yet, like, the crimes are undeniable. So when I started thinking about Christine's character, and I thought, well, what could create a falling out between her and religion? Because that's ultimately what the ending reconciles, is then that she takes it over. And to me, that was like the ultimate victory, is like this religion that spent its whole time oppressing people, specifically women. Then to see that come full circle and her to take over it was just really kind of beautiful to me. So that's where this idea of her having this backstory with the priest came from. And I find conversion therapy to be probably the most awful thing people do to each other. We do a lot of awful things to each other, but conversion therapy is like especially disgusting to me. And so I thought, man, like the idea of like an exorcism that is also a conversion, like conversion therapy disguised as an exorcism, is where I was able to connect demons and this religious like oppression. And so and then it became very necessary that her character be queer, because I think that was essential to that connection. So that's where it came from. That's where my thought process grew out of. I start with what scares me. And it scares me to think that, like, you could beat people into being something different than they are. It's not the same, but like, for example, I'm left-handed, right? And there is a time where I would have been considered evil and sinister. And I would have, and children were raised where they had to have their hands tied by nuns, tied behind their back and forced to write with their right hands. And then they would develop stutters, right? For something just being left-handed. And so there's always something that really bothered me. It just seemed fundamentally unfair. It was like an injustice. And that gets my blood boiling,
Oh yeah. And to have a film that has two twists in it.
Yeah.
That's what got me. I was just like, oh wow, didn't see that, and then definitely did not see the ending. So we were discussing the ending briefly there for a moment, Jessie, and he explained what went into the process of making the infamous mouth scene. How was that for you, being the actor side of things?
So Kevin Ward, he does like special effects makeup. I went to his house one day and he made a mold of my head. He put a bunch of silicone on it, tied back my hair. And then he literally just like lays plaster all over everything. And I thought it was, I mean, I've gone through a lot. I'm like, I feel like I'm a tough chick, right? Like, and the silicone was fine, you know, and they don't do the little straws anymore. I guess that's like worse for you or something. But, you know, he left like some nose holes so I could breathe. But then when he started layering the plaster on, it started getting like heavier and heavier. And like it kind of started to get heavy on my nose and my mouth was completely covered. So I used like all of my like skills just trying to like calm myself down because I was starting to panic just a little bit because it's really heavy. It's really, if you have any problem with claustrophobia, I don't think they could ever do that. And it had to sit there for like half an hour to like harden, and then he like yanked it off, and then he sent it to Midian, and she built it from there. But I was like, oh, this will be no problem. This is cool because I've done all kinds of prosthetics and like crazy stuff. But it was not pleasant at all. It was kind of like a few like near panic attacks, but I made it through.
And it was awesome. It's still one of the coolest scenes I've seen in a really long time.
Yeah, when Midian showed me the head she made, I was like looking at myself. It was really weird. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was when you were gone for a second, we were talking to Carmelo about it. That's the best, most horrible thing I've ever seen in any horror movie ever. So it came across so well.
And
Good.
We were telling Carmelo, we watched a Serbian film together. We just did the Hostel series to do for our podcast, and that still takes the cake.
Grossed us out more than anything. So
yeah, mouth. I feel like mouth stuff is always gross. Sort of like the bones popping out and the black goo. I mean, that part was fun though. When it was actually me at the end with the goo coming out, that part was really fun.
Was that part shot in one take, or did you have to do that multiple times?
We did it twice.
How many takes did we do? I feel like
we nailed it the first time. You're absolutely right. But we did it a second time as a backup. And we were like, because I mean, it took like 4 hours to reset that thing.
Yeah.
So, oh, wow.
You know what I mean? So we're like, we can't really do it more than twice. It was so perfect the first time, but we were like, I mean, we had the time. So we're like, let's get another just in case.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So no pressure at all. Jessie nailed this one on the first take. But I was there already. Actually, for me, that was the most fun scene to shoot because I'm just like running and screaming and crying like this whole time. And finally, like I'm like in my own power. And when I was down in that room up on that chair, I seriously could feel just like the power like emanating into me. And I was like, this is the moment. And I was so ready for it. It was the funnest scene to shoot for sure.
And we felt that.
Yeah, we felt it big time.
Felt it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that was real. That was like real shivers and chills on my body. It was pretty awesome.
So we're running out of time here, but I got one more question for you, Carmelo. So I noticed a lot of blue light used in this film, especially in darker scenes. Was there an intent behind that? Was it a matter of just how it looked, or was there a deeper meaning behind the blue that kept appearing?
Yeah, I don't know why the blue light became controversial, but my fucking lighting team was like, nah, man, we can't do this. And I was like, just make it blue. I don't ask for anything. I'm probably like the least demanding director any of them's ever going to work with ever. Because like, I know there's like 10% of things that really matter. And those are the things I like to spend all my time on. And the rest, you got to trust your team. Like I can't think about every goddamn line. I have to trust the actors. You got to trust them to do their job. And you help them, but they're the ones who are thinking about just about the lines. I got to think about everything. So when I asked the damn lighting guys, I'm like, make the light blue. And they were like, no, we don't really want to do that. And I'm like, just do it. Just make it blue. I wanted it because it looks like nighttime. It looks cold. It looks isolating. It looks very like scary and lonely to me. Like I just thought in my mind, these scenes were blue. And you know, it was really those last couple of days of shooting when I sort of asserted my vision, I guess. I feel like
you
Jessie,
stepped into your power.
Yeah, I did, because for most of the movie, you really do. You trust your team. You got a lot of people. I'm not going to tell the sound guy how to do his job. I don't know how to do the sound guy's job. But, like, once in a while, there's like a thing that I want because I have a creative vision, and that's sort of the job of the director. So that was a big moment for us.
Well,
Like,
I'll tell you how it came across to me and why I liked it so much is because it did feel nighttime and dark, but something about it felt unnatural. Like that wasn't natural light. But then that's the point where things started to become not so natural. So to me, it really came across as there's weird shit happening. Here's some weird, not so natural lighting that might throw you off a little bit. So that's how that came across to me. As the film got darker and things became less natural and more almost paranormal feeling in a way, the lighting really emphasized that. So good call on the blue lighting.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
He fought for it for sure.
Yeah.
You have any more questions for these guys?
No,
that about covers it?
That's about everything I needed to know.
Yeah,
and so thank you both so much for doing this. We really appreciate it.
No problem.
And if you all have questions for them, just sound off in the comments below. You guys know how we do around here. So we have Jessie, we have Carmelo from the film Sin Eater. It's out now on VOD everywhere. You can also get physical copies. We got one right here.
It's right here.
Woo!
I can buy all the copies at Walmart because I'm that enthusiastic about this movie. So.
We really appreciate
have
that.
some.
Yeah.
I went to Walmart and I couldn't find it, so I don't even have a copy.
I had Mel picking up one, and then like 3 days later, they got a huge stock of them. I'm like, of course.
Okay, yeah.
Jesse, I'll bring you a comp next time I'm in Colorado.
All right, thanks.
There we go.
Yeah, so we can't thank you guys enough, and we can't express how much we loved this movie, and we can't express to our viewers how much you need to watch this movie.
Yeah.
So it's out everywhere, VOD, or go to Walmart and buy a copy.
Or do both.
Or
really.
do both. Or buy a few copies. Like me. Be like me.
Yeah.
Is the moral of the story.
Yep. Yeah. So with that being said,
Thank
see
you
you later, everybody.